Hello, I'm Yvonne, a 35-year-old single mother. I never imagined I'd be celebrating Thanksgiving at a diner with my 8-year-old son, Jason. But that's exactly where we ended up after my parents chose my sister, Amanda, over us. After years of trying to be the peacemaker in my family, I finally learned what it means to advocate for myself and my child. Before I tell you how my own family threw us out into the cold on Thanksgiving, let me know where you're watching from and please hit that subscribe button to join our community. My name is Yvonne. I'm 35 years old, and I never thought I'd be spending Thanksgiving in a roadside diner with my 8-year-old son, Jason. But that's exactly what happened when my own parents chose my sister, Amanda, over us. After years of trying to keep the peace in our family, I finally learned what it means to stand up for myself and my child. Before I tell you how my own family threw us out into the cold on Thanksgiving, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button to join our community. Growing up in the suburbs of Allentown, Pennsylvania, our family of 4 seemed picture-perfect from the outside. My parents Martha and Richard Thompson worked hard to provide us with a comfortable middle-class life. Mom was an elementary school teacher who poured her heart into every student, while Dad managed the local hardware store that had been in his family for generations. Our modest 2-story home with its white picket fence was the gathering place for neighborhood kids, especially during summer barbecues. As children, Amanda and I were inseparable despite our 2-year age difference. I remember spending countless hours building elaborate blanket forts in the living room, riding our bikes to the creek behind our neighborhood, and staging talent shows for our parents. Being the older sister, I always took my responsibility to look out for Amanda seriously. When she struggled with math homework, I stayed up late to prepare for tests. When neighborhood kids teased her about her braces in 6th grade, I was the one who confronted them. "Remember how you used to braid my hair every morning before school?" Amanda once reminisced during a rare moment of sisterly affection in our adult years. Those memories made our current relationship all the more painful. The growing distance. The shift in our relationship began during our college years. I chose to attend our local community college to pursue nursing, a profession I felt truly called to. Meanwhile, Amanda received a scholarship to attend an Ivy League university on the East Coast to study marketing. While I was proud of her accomplishments, this marked the beginning of a growing distance between us. Each time she returned home for holidays, she seemed to inhabit a different world, talking about experiences and opportunities that felt increasingly foreign to our family's humble existence. "You wouldn't understand what it's like in the real world," she told me one Christmas break while flaunting her designer clothes and new laptop. "Some of us have actual careers to build." The comment stung, especially since I was working overnight shifts at the hospital while completing my nursing degree. But I brushed it off, attributing her attitude to the stress of final exams. After college, our paths diverged even further. I married Michael, my high school sweetheart, and we had Jason shortly after. While I cherished my son with all my heart, my marriage began to unravel when Jason was just 2. Michael's struggle with commitment and responsibility became impossible to ignore, especially when he started missing child support payments and visitation weekends. Raising Jason as a single mother while working full-time as a pediatric nurse wasn't the life I had envisioned, but I found fulfillment in caring for my patients and creating a stable home for my son. Amanda, meanwhile, seemed to live a charmed life that she never hesitated to flaunt. After a few years climbing the corporate ladder at a prestigious marketing firm in New York, she met and married Thomas Whitfield, the son of a banking executive. Their wedding was a lavish affair at a vineyard in Napa Valley that required my parents to dip into their retirement savings just to attend. I stayed home with Jason, who had an ear infection that weekend, a decision Amanda never forgave me for. "If you really wanted to be there, you would have found a way," she said coldly when I called to congratulate her. "Everyone important managed to make it." Those words revealed how little she valued my presence and how little she understood the realities of single parenthood. As the years passed, Amanda's influence over our parents grew in proportion to her wealth. When Thomas received a significant promotion, they purchased a sprawling home in an exclusive suburb of Philadelphia, just a 45-minute drive from our parents. The proximity allowed them to host elaborate dinner parties that my parents attended with increasing frequency. Meanwhile, I lived 2 hours away in a modest apartment, working shifts that made regular visits challenging. The dynamic shifted further when Mom and Dad began experiencing health issues in their early 60s. Dad's heart condition required a pacemaker, and Mom developed arthritis that made daily tasks increasingly difficult. Though Amanda lived closer, it was me who took time off work to drive them to medical appointments, organize their medications, and help with household chores. "Your sister is just so busy with her career and the children," Mom would explain apologetically whenever I expressed frustration at Amanda's absence. "And they've been so generous helping us pay for the new roof and upgrading our heating system." The unspoken implication was clear: Amanda contributed financially, so her lack of physical presence was excusable. The holiday drama. Despite the growing tension, I continued to make efforts to maintain our family bonds, especially for Jason's sake. My son adored his grandparents and looked forward to family gatherings with genuine excitement. Even at 8 years old, he remained blissfully unaware of the undercurrents of resentment between his mother and aunt. "Grandma makes the best pumpkin pie in the world," Jason declared as November approached this year. "And I can't wait to show Grandpa my science project that won first prize." His enthusiasm made me even more determined to ensure this Thanksgiving would be a warm, loving experience. In the weeks leading up to Thanksgiving, I found myself hoping that this holiday might finally bridge the growing divide in our family. Dad's health scare earlier in the year had been a stark reminder of how precious our time together was. Perhaps shared gratitude around the Thanksgiving table could heal old wounds and create new memories. How wrong I was. The weeks before Thanksgiving were filled with both anticipation and the usual holiday preparations. Jason and I spent a Saturday afternoon baking pumpkin and apple pies using my grandmother's recipes. Our small apartment filled with the warm scent of cinnamon and nutmeg. We carefully wrapped homemade cranberry sauce in mason jars tied with ribbon, and I splurged on a bottle of my father's favorite whiskey as a gift. "Can I make a special card for Grandma and Grandpa?" Jason asked, his face smeared with flour as we finished our baking. I smiled and pulled out the craft supplies, watching as he meticulously drew our family gathered around a Thanksgiving table, even including Amanda and her family in his artwork. His innocence about our family dynamics was both touching and heartbreaking. "Do you think Sophia and Ethan will want to play with my new Nintendo game?" he wondered, referring to his cousins, who were 2 years older and 2 years younger than him, respectively. "I've been practicing so I can show them how to get to the secret level." "I'm sure they'll be impressed," I assured him, not mentioning that the last time we'd visited Amanda's children had shown little interest in playing with their cousin. Instead, flaunting their expensive toys and making Jason feel inadequate. The call that changed everything. 2 days before Thanksgiving, I received an unexpected call from my mother. Her voice sounded tight and unnaturally high-pitched as she asked about our plans for arrival. "We're still planning to come around noon on Thursday if that works," I confirmed while chopping vegetables for the salad I'd promised to bring. There was a pause on the line. "That's fine, dear. It's just that, well, Amanda mentioned she might be uncomfortable with everyone there at once. It gets so crowded, you know." My knife stilled on the cutting board. "What exactly are you saying, Mom?" "Nothing. Nothing," she backpedaled quickly. "Just that things have been a bit tense lately. Amanda and Thomas have been under a lot of stress with his work situation." This was the first I'd heard of any issues with Thomas's job. But that wasn't what concerned me. "Mom, it's Thanksgiving. Families get together for Thanksgiving. Jason has been looking forward to this for weeks." Of course," she said hastily. "Just maybe try to arrive promptly. Amanda mentioned they might need to leave early." After hanging up, I stood staring at the wall, a sense of unease settling over me. The call felt like a warning shot, but I pushed away my concerns. Surely, even Amanda wouldn't try to disrupt a family holiday. The morning of Thanksgiving arrived with the first snow of the season, light flurries dusting the world in white as Jason and I loaded our contributions into the car. The 2-hour drive to my parents' home was filled with Jason's excited chatter and holiday music on the radio. As we turned onto my parents' street, I noticed Amanda's sleek black Range Rover already parked in the driveway alongside my father's sedan. "We're here," Jason exclaimed, unbuckling his seat belt before I'd even fully parked. I can see Grandpa through the window. I gathered our pies and gifts, plastering a smile on my face as we approached the front door. Before I could knock, the door swung open to reveal my mother, her expression strangely tight, despite her welcoming words. "Happy Thanksgiving," I said, leaning in to kiss her cheek. She accepted the gesture stiffly, her eyes darting toward the living room where I could hear the murmur of voices. Jason darted past us with a gleeful grandpa, and I watched as my father scooped him up in a bear hug, his face lighting up with genuine joy. At least my son's relationship with his grandparents remained untainted. The realization. As I moved to place our contributions in the kitchen, I overheard Amanda's distinctive voice from the adjacent dining room. "Always makes everything about her. Just once, I'd like a holiday without the drama." I froze, pie in hand, my cheeks burning at the realization she was talking about me. Before I could process this, my father appeared in the kitchen doorway, his expression a mixture of apology and discomfort. "Yvonne," he said quietly, offering a quick one-armed hug that felt more like a formality than a greeting. "Good to see you, kiddo." "Good to see you, too, Dad," I replied, studying his face. "Is everything okay?" He cleared his throat, avoiding my eyes. Sure. Just the usual holiday chaos," he gestured vaguely toward the dining room. "Your mother's been cooking since dawn." I followed his gaze and noticed something that made my stomach sink. The elaborate Thanksgiving table, always set with my mother's best china and carefully arranged name cards, had only 8 place settings. There were 9 of us total, my parents, Amanda and Thomas, their 2 children, Jason and myself, and my elderly Aunt Patricia, who joined us every year. Someone was being excluded from the main table. And given the whispered conversations and averted gazes, I had a sinking feeling I knew who it was. 20 minutes after our arrival, my mother cornered me in the kitchen while I was arranging the pie I'd brought on a decorative plate. "Yvonne, dear," she began. Her voice pitched low as she glanced toward the doorway to ensure we weren't overheard. "We need to have a quick talk." I set down the knife I was using, a sense of foreboding washing over me. "What's going on, Mom?" "Ever since we arrived, everyone's been acting strange." She twisted her wedding ring nervously, a habit she'd had for as long as I could remember. "It's about Amanda," she said finally. She's expressed some concerns about today." "Concerns?" I echoed, keeping my voice level despite the anger beginning to simmer beneath the surface. What kind of concerns could she possibly have? My mother's eyes darted toward the living room where the sound of children playing could be heard. "She feels that holidays tend to become tense when you're here. She says you always find a way to make things difficult." The accusation hit like a physical blow. "When have I ever ruined a holiday?" I demanded, struggling to keep my voice down. "Name one time, Mom." "Well, there was last Christmas when you got upset about the children's gifts," she offered weakly. I stared at her in disbelief. "You mean when Amanda gave her kids tablets and designer clothes while Jason got a $10 gift card? He cried in the car afterward." "Mom, any parent would have been upset. And then Easter when you argued with Thomas about politics at dinner. He was the one who brought up the topic and he insulted my profession, saying nurses were just failed doctors. Was I supposed to just smile and take that? I'm not saying it's fair, Yvonne," my mother sighed. "But Amanda has, she's been very clear about how she feels. And your father and I are just trying to keep the peace." "Keep the peace by what? Letting her walk all over everyone? Letting her dictate who gets to be part of this family?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. The final confrontation. At that moment, my father walked into the kitchen, his expression grim. "Everything okay in here?" he asked, though it was clear from his face that he knew exactly what conversation was taking place. "No, Dad. Everything is not okay," I replied. "Mom just told me that Amanda doesn't want me here because I apparently ruin every holiday. And instead of defending me, you're both just going along with it." My father's shoulders slumped slightly. "It's not that simple, Yvonne. Amanda has been, she's threatened not to bring the children around anymore if things don't go her way. Your mother and I aren't getting any younger, and the thought of not seeing our grandchildren. So my son doesn't count?" I asked, my voice breaking slightly. Jason is your grandchild, too. He's been talking about this day for weeks. He made you a card. Did you know that? He spent hours on it. My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances, and I could see the conflict in their eyes. They knew what was happening wasn't right, but they'd made their choice already. Maybe, my mother suggested tentatively, you could take some food home with you. We could say you weren't feeling well. Then next week, we could have a special dinner, just us and Jason. I stared at her in shock. You want me to leave? To take my son away from his family on Thanksgiving, to lie to him about why we're leaving? It would just be for this one holiday, my father interjected quickly. Until we can sort things out with Amanda. She's going through a difficult time right now with Thomas's company downsizing and the pressure of the children's private school tuition. And I'm not going through a difficult time? I asked incredulously. I'm working 60-hour weeks at the hospital. I'm raising a child alone. I'm driving 2 hours each way to take you both to doctor's appointments, but somehow I'm the one who needs to leave. The kitchen fell silent. The only sound, the distant laughter of children and the low murmur of the television in the living room. Jason was still blissfully unaware of the drama unfolding, probably showing his grandfather the video game moves he'd been practicing all week. Please, Yvonne, my mother pleaded quietly. Just for today, for the sake of family harmony. Those words stung more than anything else. Family harmony apparently meant appeasing Amanda at all costs, even if it meant throwing her sister and nephew out into the cold on Thanksgiving Day. Before I could respond, the kitchen door swung open, and Amanda herself strode in, her perfectly highlighted hair framing a face set in lines of practiced concern. Is everything okay in here? She asked, though the gleam in her eyes told me she knew exactly what was being discussed. The children are asking when we're going to eat. And just like that, the confrontation I'd been dreading had arrived. The climax. Amanda's entrance into the kitchen changed the atmosphere instantly. My mother flinched visibly while my father suddenly became very interested in adjusting the thermostat on the wall. The tension was so thick, you could have carved it with the turkey knife sitting unused on the counter. We're just having a discussion, I said evenly, meeting my sister's gaze directly, about why you've decided I shouldn't be at Thanksgiving dinner. Amanda's perfectly made-up face arranged itself into an expression of innocence that didn't reach her eyes. Oh, is that what they told you? I just mentioned that holidays tend to become all about your problems when you're here. Some of us want to enjoy a peaceful family gathering without it turning into the Yvonne show. The Yvonne show? I repeated, bewildered by this characterization. What are you talking about? I barely get a word in at family gatherings because you're so busy talking about your vacations and the children's achievements. She crossed her arms, the diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist catching the light. See, this is exactly what I mean. You've always been jealous of what Thomas and I have accomplished. Every time we mention anything about our lives, you get this martyred look on your face. Accomplished? I laughed without humor. Amanda, you married money. That's not an accomplishment. That's luck. Some of us actually work for what we have. The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Not because they weren't true, but because I knew Amanda would use them as evidence of exactly what she'd been claiming. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. There it is. The resentment that's always just below the surface with you. You've been bitter ever since I got into Princeton while you stayed in town to chase after Michael. And look how that turned out for you. Our parents stood frozen, watching this exchange like spectators at a tennis match. Neither stepped in to defuse the situation or defend me. Leave Michael out of this, I said quietly, aware that we might be overheard by the children. My marriage and divorce have nothing to do with today. Don't they though? Amanda pressed, sensing an advantage. It's always something with you, Yvonne, your failed marriage, your struggles with money, your complaints about how hard it is to be a single mom. Every holiday becomes a pity party, and frankly, it's exhausting for the rest of us. I felt as though I'd been slapped. Had I really complained that much? I tried to recall our recent family gatherings, searching for instances where I might have drawn attention to my difficulties. Sure, I'd mentioned being tired after working a double shift before last Christmas, and I'd had to leave early from Easter dinner to cover for a colleague. But a pity party? I have never asked for anyone's pity, I said firmly. And if simply mentioning the realities of my life makes you uncomfortable, perhaps the problem isn't with me. Girls, please, my mother finally interjected weakly. It's Thanksgiving. Can't we just enjoy the meal together? Amanda turned to her with an expression of practiced hurt. That's all I wanted, Mom. A nice, drama-free holiday. But I see that's not going to happen as long as some people insist on making everything about their issues. What drama have I created today? I asked, my voice rising despite my best efforts. I arrived with pies and gifts, excited to spend time with family. You're the one who told our parents you don't want me here. The aftermath. At that moment, a small voice came from the doorway. Mom, why are you shouting? All heads turned to see Jason standing there, his eyes wide with confusion. My heart sank at the realization he was witnessing this ugly scene. It's nothing, honey, I said quickly, attempting to smile. Just a grown-up discussion. Amanda's children appeared behind Jason, Sophia's 10-year-old face alight with malicious interest, while 6-year-old Ethan mimicked his sister's expression. Auntie Yvonne is being difficult again, Sophia announced with the casual cruelty children sometimes display when parroting adult sentiments they've overheard. Mom said she always ruins holidays. Jason looked at his cousin in confusion, then back at me. That's not true, he said loyally. My mom doesn't ruin anything. Before I could respond, Amanda's husband Thomas entered the now crowded kitchen, his tall frame filling the doorway. He surveyed the scene with the detached interest of someone watching a mildly entertaining television show. Everything all right in here? He asked, placing a proprietary hand on Amanda's shoulder. The natives are getting restless for turkey, he chuckled at his own joke, seeming oblivious to the tension. We're just sorting out a misunderstanding, Amanda replied, leaning into his touch. Yvonne is upset because I suggested she might be happier celebrating elsewhere this year. Thomas glanced at me with what he probably thought was sympathetic understanding, but came across as condescension. Money's tight for you right now, isn't it, Yvonne? If that's the issue, we'd be happy to help out. No one should be too proud to accept family assistance. His offer, made in front of everyone, including my son, burned like acid. The assumption that my objection to being excluded was financial rather than emotional showed how little he understood or cared about family bonds. I don't need your money, Thomas, I said coldly. What I wanted was to share a holiday with my family, with my parents, and yes, even with my sister, despite our differences. Well, that's obviously not going to work out today, my father suddenly interjected, his voice firmer than it had been throughout the entire exchange. Yvonne, I think it would be best if you took Jason and left. We can get together another time. The finality in his tone left no room for argument. My own father was asking me to leave on Thanksgiving, choosing peace with Amanda over justice for me and my son. In that moment, something broke inside me. Not just my heart for Jason, who was looking increasingly confused and upset, but a lifetime of accommodating Amanda's demands and accepting second place in my parents' consideration. Fine, I said quietly. We'll go. But don't expect me to pretend this never happened. As I took Jason's hand and turned to leave the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of the satisfied expression on Amanda's face. She had one, as she always did. But this would be the last time. The goodbye. Why do we have to leave, Mom? Jason asked, his small voice quavering as I helped him put his coat back on in the front hallway. We just got here, and I haven't shown Grandpa my new game yet. The innocent question nearly broke me, but I fought to keep my composure for his sake. Sometimes grown-ups have disagreements, honey. Today isn't a good day for us to stay. But it's Thanksgiving, he protested, his eyes filling with tears. And Grandma made turkey and stuffing. She told me last week on the phone she was making extra stuffing just for me because it's my favorite. I knelt down to his level, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. I know, sweetie. I'm disappointed, too. But we'll have our own special Thanksgiving. I promise. My mother appeared in the hallway holding a stack of plastic containers. I packed some food for you, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, and a slice of pie for each of you. The offering felt like a pitiful consolation prize, and the disposable containers rather than her usual lending of proper dishes spoke volumes. She didn't expect to see us again soon to retrieve them. "Thank you," I said stiffly, taking the containers. The food inside was still warm, a reminder of how quickly our welcome had evaporated. My father joined us, awkwardly, patting Jason on the shoulder. "Sorry about this, sport. Maybe next weekend we can have that game time, huh?" Jason looked up at him with confusion. "But why can't we stay today? Why do Sophia and Ethan get to stay? But I have to leave." The direct question hung in the air, none of the adults willing to provide an honest answer. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that his aunt values her comfort more than his presence and his grandparents aren't willing to stand up for him? "We'll talk about it in the car, honey," I said gently, shooting a reproachful look at my parents. "Go get your backpack from the living room." As Jason reluctantly went to collect his things, I turned to my parents. "I hope you realize what you're doing today. This isn't just about me. Jason will remember this rejection for the rest of his life." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "Yvonne, please understand. Amanda threatened to take the children and move back to New York if we didn't handle things her way. We couldn't bear to lose contact with them. So instead, you're losing contact with Jason and me?" I asked quietly. "That's the choice you're making. It's not forever," my father insisted, though he couldn't meet my gaze. "Just until things settle down. Amanda's going through a difficult phase." "Amanda has been going through a difficult phase for 20 years, I replied. "And you've enabled it every step of the way." Jason returned with his backpack, his eyes red-rimmed but dry. He'd clearly been crying in the other room, and the thought broke my heart all over again. From the dining room doorway, I could see Amanda watching us, a small, satisfied smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Behind her, Thomas was already seated at the head of the table, a position my father had always occupied at holiday meals. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. "Say goodbye to Grandma and Grandpa, Jason," I said gently. He gave them each a quick hug, his usual enthusiasm noticeably dampened. "Goodbye. Thank you for the food." As we walked down the front path toward our car, snow continuing to fall in gentle flurries, I heard the front door close firmly behind us. No one stood at the window to wave goodbye. No one called out a final apology or farewell. "Mom," Jason asked as I helped him buckle his seat belt. "Did we do something wrong?" I swallowed hard, fighting back tears. "No, honey, you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes families have complicated feelings, but none of this is your fault." "Then why did Aunt Amanda look so happy when we were leaving?" he asked with the devastating perceptiveness children sometimes display. I started the car, watching as the windshield wipers pushed away the gathering snow. "Some people feel better about themselves when they make others feel worse," I said finally. "But that's not how we want to be, is it?" Jason shook his head seriously. "No, that's mean." A new chapter. As we pulled away from my childhood home, I caught a last glimpse of the Thanksgiving table through the dining room window. My family was seating themselves, Amanda directing the arrangement with animated gestures. Already, it was as if we had never been there at all. In the passenger seat beside me, Jason began to cry quietly, the reality of our exclusion finally sinking in. I reached over to squeeze his hand, my own tears threatening to spill over. "Where are we going now?" he asked through his sniffles. It was a good question. The weather was worsening, and the 2-hour drive home in these conditions didn't appeal to me. Plus, the thought of returning to our empty apartment on Thanksgiving was too depressing to contemplate. "Let's find somewhere to have our own Thanksgiving dinner," I decided, spotting a sign for a diner up ahead. "It might not be traditional, but we'll be together, and that's what really matters." As we sat in a vinyl booth at the Sunshine Diner 30 minutes later, eating turkey sandwiches that bore little resemblance to my mother's roast turkey, I called my best friend Sarah. "They did what?" she exclaimed, loudly enough that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "On Thanksgiving? With Jason there. It happened so fast," I explained, watching as Jason concentrated on drawing on the paper placemat with crayons provided by our sympathetic waitress. "1 minute we were putting pies in the kitchen, And the next my father was asking us to leave because your princess sister didn't want you there. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Where are you now? When I told her about our diner Thanksgiving, she insisted we come to her house immediately. We've got tons of food and Brian's family is all here. They'd love to see you and Jason. No one should be in a diner on Thanksgiving. The invitation was tempting, but I declined. We're over an hour away and the roads are getting bad. But thank you for offering. It means a lot. Then we'll do Christmas at my place, she declared firmly. And I don't want to hear a single word about you going back to your parents' house. They made their choice today. After hanging up, I sat watching Jason push mashed potatoes around his plate, and the full weight of what had happened hit me anew. My own family had rejected us on a holiday centered around gratitude and togetherness. How would I help my son understand this when I barely understood it myself? The weekend following Thanksgiving unfolded in a haze of hurt and confusion. Back in our apartment, Jason remained quieter than usual, his normally exuberant personality subdued. When his father called for their weekly phone check-in, he didn't even want to talk, a first in his 8 years. He's just not feeling well, I explained to Michael, unwilling to burden my ex-husband with family drama he was no longer part of. Must be that bug going around, Michael replied disinterestedly. Anyway, I wanted to let you know I can't take him next weekend after all. Something came up at work. It was a familiar excuse, but today I lacked the energy to challenge it. Fine, I'll figure something out. On Saturday afternoon, my phone lit up with my mother's name. I stared at it for several rings before finally answering. Yvonne. Her voice sounded tentative. How are you and Jason? How do you think we are, Mom? I replied, keeping my voice low so Jason wouldn't overhear from the living room where he was watching cartoons. We were kicked out of a family holiday. Jason cried himself to sleep Thursday night. I'm so sorry, honey. We never meant for things to go that way. Your father and I have been sick about it. Sick enough to stand up to Amanda, to tell her she was wrong. A pause. It's complicated, Yvonne. Amanda and Thomas have been having marital problems. She's been very emotional lately, and we were worried if we pushed back, she might, well, she's threatened to limit our access to the children before. The revelation about Amanda's marriage should have given me some satisfaction, but instead, it just made me sad. Our family dynamics were so broken that my sister could use her children as pawns, and my parents were willing to sacrifice one grandchild's feelings to maintain access to the others. So, what happens now? I asked. Are we uninvited from Christmas, too? Should I just tell Jason his grandparents are too busy to see him anymore? Of course not, my mother said quickly. We were thinking maybe we could come visit you next weekend. Just the three of us. No Amanda. We could bring Jason's presents and have a nice lunch. The offer was meant as an olive branch, but it stung nonetheless. We were now the relatives to be visited separately, kept apart from the real family gatherings. I'll think about it, I said non-committally. I need to go now. After hanging up, I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through old family photos on my phone. There we all were last Christmas, smiling for the camera, despite the tension I now realized had been simmering beneath the surface. Amanda.